In Jakarta, the various leaders and countries gathered at a summit of Asia and Africa. And in that summit, all countries that were present were allowed and given an opportunity to make their speeches and declarations. South Africa also had an opportunity to do so. The summit concluded by adopting 3 documents. It adopted the message of the conference, Asia-Africa Conference message, and the message contained key principles that have to deal with issues such as diversity, acceptance of diversity, acceptance, of course, of equality of all nations, and tolerance. But more importantly, it also dealt with issues such as acceptance of the equality of all races, and it also dealt with xenophobia, that we should not tolerate xenophobia. Now, for us as South Africans attending here, that was an important message that we also got here, because you have got all these nations saying, our struggle needs to continue and we must be against deviant behaviors such as racism, such as xenophobia, such as exclusivism. We must be all inclusive. It also dealt with the issue of multilateralism, that we must be aware that we live in an interconnected world. Multilateralism, where we act together in cooperation, particularly us in the southern hemisphere, that we should have south-to-south cooperation to promote world peace and to promote prosperity. So that is what that one document dealt with. And the other document dealt with Palestine. We took, as a summit, a clear position on Palestine, that we promote two-states approach to the resolution of the problems in the Middle East, that the Palestinians have a just right to have a state of their own. They deserve a state, and there must be 2 states, Israel and Palestine. Nearly every speaker spoke about that. We also spoke about a reform of the United Nations. And nearly every speaker spoke about the unfairness of the global structural architecture, where a few countries that sit on the Security Council are the only ones, to the exclusion of many others, particularly in the South, who are able to decide finally on world affairs. And we said that structure must be inclusive, it must be representative, it must represent those parts of the world that it does not represent. We also adopted a document called a declaration. And a declaration that we adopted talks about issues such as how we can engender more connectivity amongst our countries, how we can engender trade amongst our countries, how we can take steps to improve the economic well-being of all our people. Now, Bandung became a beacon of hope, as an inspiration to many, many movements and many countries around the world. Our attendance here as a South African delegation gave us an opportunity to go down memory lane and to walk the path that was charted by our leaders. There were 91 countries represented here. And we were all remembering what happened in 1955, when many leaders from many parts of the world, of countries and movements that were fighting against imperialism and colonialism, got together. And for us, it was like renewal of vows. In 1955, they made certain vows. They agreed to 10 principles. And some of those 10 principles were that they were going to fight for the freedom of the peoples of the countries from whence they came. And they agreed on principles even then, of things such as basic human rights and fundamental human rights of their people should be respected, that there should be justice for all the people in their countries, that there should also be sovereignty, respect for the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the countries where they came from, which was really about self-determination. And it was a major step that they were all taking collectively, that they were going to fight for the freedom of their peoples. They were also determined that they were going to be a group of nations that were going to be non-aggressive to one another. They were also a group of nations that were going to resolve disputes through consensus and negotiation, and that they would respect the equality of the races in their own countries, and that there should be respect of other countries, equal or small. Now, these were some of the principles that they vowed they would espouse. And it so happens, for us as the South African delegation, it rang a very good memory bell, because soon after our departed Malume Moses Kotane and Molvi Kachalia were here to represent South Africa and our